Good evening. I'd like to call the study session of North Augusta City Council for Monday, July the 10th, 2023 to order. And this time I'd like to turn it over to our city administrator, Mr. Jim Clifford.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. We've got a full plate tonight, so we'll be going through the agenda for next week, department details from all our department heads, and then we have 3 items for Mayor's Matters. One is our financial audit. Second will be recycling changes for residents. And then lastly will be the Calhoun Park Educational Panels discussion. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get right into the agenda if that's okay with you. And we have, under new business, item number 6 on your draft agenda, planning and development, ordinance number 2023-14 to approve the general development plan for 44.52 Acre River Commons planned development on the west side of Knox Avenue between Martintown Road and LeCompte Avenue. First reading, and I'm going to defer comments to Tommy Paradise to give a little background on this particular item, as this has been seen by the Planning Commission before coming to you.
Mr. Mayor and Council, this was the last couple of meetings. It seems like I've given you some kind of convoluted PD modifications with a lot of different things. This one's fairly simple. It was developed in 2004, 2005. It was when Lowe's and Kroger's was built up there. There hasn't been a lot since, I don't believe. And one, if you're facing Kroger's, the parcel on the far right, they would like to put a Valvoline Oil Change Express there. But the problem is the PD calls out that to be retail. So they're asking to change the PD to allow the change to retail or automotive services to be allowed on that particular parcel. And that is the ask.
And that was approved by Planning Commission for recommendation to us, right?
Correct. It was recommended for approval. Okay. And I would say the before that, the Planning Commission also had an opportunity to review a sketch plan of what they want to do there.
So as far as the Planning Commission, there was no issue that came out during that presentation or discussion? I mean, they were good with everything?
Correct.
Okay.
Tommy, you said the right-hand side of Kroger. Is that right there with the hill to the back?
That's it.
There's enough room there?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It's amazing what engineers can do.
Okay. Thanks.
So again, that'll be an ordinance, so it'll be a 2 reading, so first reading will be next week. The next item we have under Parks, Recreation, and Tourism is resolution number 2023-22, authorizing proceeds from the 2023 North Augusta versus Harlem baseball game at SRP Park to be used to purchase new portable pitching mounds at Riverview Park. And I will give any comments over to Rick or Rachel if anyone wants to cover that.
So in the past, sometimes we've done batting cages, right? So we're doing mounds with this? Okay.
And where?
Any questions for Rick?
Yeah, what field, Rick? What area? Okay.
Thank you, Rick.
Next item under Public Safety would be resolution number 2023-23, accepting a school resource officer program grant from the State of South Carolina Department of Public Safety, Office of Highway Safety and Justice Programs, and authorizing advancement of funds for reimbursable expenditures related thereto. I'll turn this over to Chief in just a moment, but what I'll start with is this grant will allow us to put a uniformed public safety officer in every school in the city limits of North Augusta. So ultimately, you know, you've had a school resource officer at the high school, you've had them at the middle schools. This will push us all the way down to the elementary school level, so we'll have full coverage across the city. This is a state-wide grant and is something that we wanted to make sure we took advantage of because it covered a great deal of the costs associated with putting new officers into the schools. And with that, I will turn it over to Chief for any further comment.
Mr. Mayor and Council, obviously this is a very important piece of what we do, in keeping the children safe in our city. So this will allow us a school resource officer in every school we have. So that's a fantastic thing for us, for the safety and security, not only of our community, but our children. So this is an opportunity that we can't afford to turn down. So we're asking for your approval.
And Chief, this is something that we'll be able to continue like we've been doing, reapplying every year, right?
Yes, sir.
So we're not having to bake this in any kind of, I mean, this is something we'll be able to continue to fund through this grant?
Yes, sir.
If we get it, okay.
There's no match. 100% of what every officer wears and carries and drives will be taken from this grant.
Chief.
That's exciting.
Yes, sir.
So with these officers, do they rotate, or, I mean, it's basically that's their only job is to go to the school, and then, you know, what happens, like, you know, I know we're going to the modified schedule this year, so there's going to be a lot of breaks. Are they still able to do traditional police work, or is it just they're strictly for the schools and that's all they can be used for?
Right. That's a great question. They're going to be assigned specific schools, so they'll have to stay at the school while school's in. Now, during breaks, obviously they can come out on the road and answer calls or do certain things, but while the school is going on, the school year is going on, they've got to be in those schools and be visible.
I know Belvedere Elementary is not city limits, but it is Area 2 district. Would that be covered or not?
It won't be in our grant. Now, I don't know what Aiken County has done, Ms. Pat, as far as covering Belvedere, but again, that's a county issue.
So that would be
It's not
it.
city.
So I'm gonna call the Board of Education because that needs to be done.
Yes, ma'am.
That one, I do not want one school left out.
Does that include the new Highland Springs as well, Chief?
It does.
Would that be two, since that's a middle and a high?
Well, it'll be for the one that's finished right now, and as it comes on board in the next couple of years, we'll certainly ask for another one. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Is there any further questions? I'll move on to the next one under Parks, Recreation, and Tourism, resolution number 2023-24, resolution authorizing purchase of educational panels for Calhoun Park. I'm going to go ahead and punt on this one to the focus items because I've got a presentation we'll go through at the end of the meeting. So I'm going to just go ahead and gloss through that now, and we'll talk that more in depth later. What is not on the agenda review is a resolution, which I'd like to include is resolution number 2023-25, which will be an ARPA request. So it's not in your packet. It's something that's late breaking. And so we're working on a larger ARPA request, which will be coming to the council in the first council meeting in August. But as we were going through the different price quotes and the things that we were researching, come to find out that we're going to be requesting a tanker truck for public safety. And the price quotes that we have are good through the 1st of August. And after the 1st of August, those costs come up significantly. And so for the effort of at least saving a few bucks, we wanted to get the tanker truck as a separate item in front of the council at this upcoming council meeting for approval. And so if you go out to Station 3, we have a large tanker truck that's out there. It's an older model. I think it's a 98 tanker truck. And Chief helped educate me on what we use these tanker trucks for. And essentially, it's a critical item that we use in responding to anything on the highways. There are no fire hydrants on the interstates on I-20 or 520, and so when they have a large vehicle incident and they have a fire, they end up having a rolled tanker truck out there. Also, they use that for mutual aid with some of our more rural areas here within Aiken County. The truck that we currently have, they're having to manufacture parts for. I know Mayor Williams went out there and got a chance to do a ride along and see some of the equipment that's out at Station 3. And so ultimately, we have an opportunity here to upgrade the system and get a new tanker truck. I know Aiken County just bought a number of new tanker trucks as well. So we're trying to get through that program and get this together. So this would be for a request of $450,000. That would buy us a truck and would also buy us all the ancillary tools, hoses, and the things that would go along with it. Through our supplier up in Spartanburg for a Pierce apparatus. So I'll pause for any questions that Chief probably is better equipped to answer than I can.
Is there any value with trading in the old one, or are we just going to try to sell it
It's a possibility that we'll probably have to sell it because of the age of it, and repairing it and getting manufacturing parts for it is just, it's obsolete.
Okay.
Okay. Subject to any questions, that's all I have for the agenda review for next week. With that, we can move into department details, and I believe Linda will be leading us off.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. All I have for you this week is our Cycle 1 customers will experience a disconnect during July 18th and 19th, and our Cycle 2 customers will have a due date on July 20th. And that's all I have for you tonight.
Thank you, Linda.
Next up, James from Public Services.
Good evening. Just to update you, you may be aware of the Pisgah Avenue sinkhole that developed this past Thursday. It turned out to be a wastewater pipe that had a crack in it, developed a hole, and allowed some sand to filtrate into our system. That's what the hole developed. That's how it developed. We had a utility crew on site today to make the repairs, and due to the rain that come on all of a sudden was real heavy, we had to pull out, and we'll be back on it tomorrow to make the repair. One lane will be closed while crews are on site. The roadway will be street plated in the evenings for traffic on both sides coming and going. And we anticipate to have the roadway fully back open and patched and repaired by Friday. The best news I have tonight is the materials recovery facility grand opening will be this Friday at 10 a.m. until 12 at 67 Clay Pit Road. Public is invited. We'd like everybody to attend to see the operations, the new facility, and they haven't got any questions, they can ask, and we'll welcome anybody who wants to come see us.
Thank you, James.
Next up, Tommy Paradise from Planning and Development.
The Planning Commission won't be meeting this month. We didn't have any applications for them to hear. The Georgia Avenue traffic calming, we've met with SCDOT about the possible recommendations, and the next steps is the consultant getting price estimates and funding strategies for that project. And just so you know, at 68 Woodlawn Lane, next week, they'll be doing an involuntary cleanup there by the city. And the cost of that will be billed back to the property owner, and if it's not paid, it'll go on their property taxes.
I know everybody got the report on the Georgia Avenue traffic calming, but once we have those estimates and the next steps, you'll bring that back to us, and we'll be able to look at all that, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good.
Next over to Public Safety, Chief Thomas.
Just a couple things. We mentioned Highland Springs, and Captain Williams out of the Fire Division will be meeting with those folks this week to get ready for those state fire marshals that'll be in Highland Springs on Thursday and Friday of this week. So we're kind of getting some different information, but we'll go on what we got right now. But they're getting very close to finishing that school, so we're hoping that obviously they will, and we can get our SRO in there. And then the last thing is Smart Cop software. We're testing that in the field right now on some of the laptops with IT's assistance, and hopefully go through the end of the month.
Over to Rick for PRT.
Be long-winded here tonight. In case you were out of town, the 2023 Nike Peach Jam was held at the Activity Center and featured 86 teams, the most that we've ever had in the history of the tournament. And with that record number of teams came record crowds on Thursday and Friday. We were really nervous about volunteers with it being July 4th week, but I just got to brag on First Baptist Church and True North Church. They turned out a record number of over 200 people volunteered to serve. And not only did they serve, you also had these churches providing desserts for for all the players. So it was a wonderful week, and their efforts are a big reason why Nike continues to come back to North Augusta. So we really appreciate the community support. Also appreciate the support of public safety officers who worked. Jason Sykes, James Sutton sanitation team kept the trash containers picked up on a daily basis. Property maintenance helped us out with the park. So appreciate everybody's support in making this Peach Jam maybe one of the best we've ever had. And also very, very proud of our staff. It was a long week, long hours, and not only did they do a great job during the week, but we turned the building around last night, and our members are happy today because we didn't stall them another day from getting in the building and playing pickleball and everything else in the weight room, the cardio room. And with that, also, I'll skip down that Pat Carpenter's cheer camp started today, and she has 140 participants in that camp. So they got the gym ready for Pat as well. PRT administrative staff and city administrative staff will meet tomorrow with our master plan team to get an update. So hopefully we'll have another report after that meeting for you folks to hear. PRT will also receive RFQs for the Sharon Jones Amphitheater additions design and engineering services on Thursday, this Thursday, September 13th. Also, the Wrecking Crew has finally received a Miracle League proposal,
You
Pat.
said July or
Yes.
September?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, September.
I said July, September.
Okay.
Yes. No, I did. That's wrong. It's July. It's this Thursday. Okay, mistake. I'm gonna blame it on the Peach Jam.
That's all right.
It's July, this Thursday.
Thank you.
Yes. The Wrecking Crew has received a Miracle League field proposal from Sports Turf Company out of Whitesburg, Georgia. We will review that proposal with Pam and George Stickler and members of the Wrecking Crew this Thursday as well. In case you did not hear, legendary football coach, Hall of Fame football coach, Dick Sheridan from North Augusta passed away. There will be a memorial service this Saturday, July 15th, 11 a.m. at Lions Field. Coach Sheridan is a native of North Augusta, went and played football at North Augusta High School, and his son Bobby is the new head football coach, athletic director at Highland Springs Middle School. And the last bit of news for you tonight is the concert lineup for the 2023 Jack-O-Lantern Jubilee is set. Friday, October 27th, we were pleased to announce that our entertainer will be Christian contemporary artist, Mr. Toby Mack. And on Saturday, we'll have American alternative rock band Sister Hazel. So looking for a great 2 nights of Jack-O-Lantern Jubilee.
Rick, thank you for all your efforts. I just want to share a little story because it's just very positive. Got some citizens here and people watching. I think council would appreciate it. So besides everything else Rick worked on his staff for the Peach Jam, one of the things that was very important for us as city is we've been building our relationship with Fort Gordon. They had been wanting to do an enlistment ceremony because that age is who they're looking at, high school, early college. And so it was important for Jim and I. We've had a lot of relationship talks with Fort Gordon, but Rick and Jeremy, they got with Nike, they made it happen. And what I'm telling you folks is the wonderful thing was, so you had these 20, so at the middle of this was game, Jim, I don't know what gym it was, but at halftime, you had these 25 so young people walk into that gym, and everybody without prompt stood up. The teams on both sides were stood up, clapping, cheering, all the entire fans. Everybody was doing that. And I've told this to anybody I can. I mean, it gives you hope about this generation because, and they were respectful of General Stanton through the whole ceremony. But it really, that's why it was a true win-win because that's what the Army needed. They want to resonate with that age. And for those folks, who, I was worried about, golly, their basketball, halftime and all that, what would they do? They stood up and clapped and cheered the whole time. It was incredible. I mean, it was awesome. So thank you for your team putting that together. It was very, very big win. So thank you.
Thank you.
Next up over to Tom Caesar for Engineering and Public Works.
So the Bluff Avenue streetscape work continues. As construction has progressed to a certain point, you may have seen we've had to close the road to through traffic, so the road is only open to the local residents and vehicles serving those residents. That's between West Avenue and well, basically Crystal Lake. So that closure and detour will remain in effect for the next several months, if not through the duration of the project. The new flagpoles out front in the building are anticipated to be set in place on likely this Saturday. That will just be the installation of the poles only. The flags will not be flown for still some time. We still have to complete the site work and get the lighting in place before we can fly those flags permanently.
Is that something once we get all that, we'll have some type of ceremony or something we can have when we put those up with the Legion or whatever? Something we ought to consider.
We can?
Yeah. I mean, as many questions as we get about the flags, we got them up flying soon, so let's promote it. My goodness.
Yeah, I just know when those poles are up there, the questions are, why aren't the flags up? So, but we do have a few items to complete.
Oh, I know. Okay.
And then lastly,
That's good stuff.
you might recall that some ARPA funding in the amount of about $600,000 was approved as a contribution to the city's storm drainage project through the Bluegrass development. That's the project down on Buena Vista Avenue, East Buena Vista Avenue. That construction is underway, and pipe is being installed, and so that is proceeding well. Sort of related to that project, you will also likely see in the next couple weeks additional clearing that will be conducted on the south side of Buena Vista Avenue for the Dominion to relocate their electric transmission line through that. So that's not anything associated with our drainage project, that's just development, that's work between the developer and Dominion Energy.
Tom, how much longer on the bridge on Riverside Boulevard?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I just got information late today on that. Contractor is scheduled to pour the bridge deck on this Wednesday, and then the remaining concrete site work on Friday. So I think we're within 2 weeks of being able to reopen that to the public. Now, we still will have some future work to rehabilitate the greenway between the bridge and through Waterworks Park, but that will come as soon as possible.
Good projects. Thanks for your help, Tom.
Last but not least, Caleb from HR.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. If you take a look on the back of your department detail sheet, you'll see our list of open employment opportunities. If there's anyone watching tonight, please check our website, and it's updated every Friday if we get anything new. So that's all I have.
Thanks, Cal.
All right, moving into Mayor's Matters. Under Focus Items, we have 3 for this evening, and the first one will be under Finance for the audit review for the fiscal year ending in December 31st, 2002. And so I will defer to Linda. All right, Grant, over to you.
Well, Mr. Mayor, members of council, thank you for having me here tonight to go over the results of the 2022 audit. I prepared hopefully a relatively brief but informative PowerPoint to go over with you. And if you have any questions as we go, please feel free to holler out, and I'll do my best to answer those. So the first slide we have here is really just a kind of a brief overview. As follows, we'll talk about a little bit about who we are as a firm. And again, my name's Grant Davis with Malden & Jenkins. I'm out of our Columbia, South Carolina office. We'll talk about the document itself, the annual comprehensive financial report. I've got a few financial statement highlights that I hope, again, will be informative, and then we'll try to answer any questions that you may have. Just after that, we can go to the next one. I'm not going to read this to you, but this is, again, just some information about who we are as a firm. The only thing that I'll note is we audit about 650 local governments, from state to cities, state entities to cities and counties and beyond across the Southeast. After that, I'm going to draw your attention to probably what you care about the most at this point, which is the audit opinion. If you have a copy of the financial statements themselves, our opinion is on page number 1. That's a little bit misleading because you've got to get past all this introductory material. It's really not page number 1, but it's the first one with a number on the bottom of it. And front and center there, you'll see our opinion stated, and it's an unmodified opinion. That's not glamorous language, but it's really the only acceptable result in a financial statement audit. So again, it's a clean opinion or an unmodified opinion, and you can see that's broken out here on this brief synopsis. Just after the opinion section, you'll see the part that refers to the management's discussion and analysis. And if I had to suggest that you read a part aside from our auditor's opinion, this would be the part that I would suggest that you read, really because it provides discussion and analysis. So if you have a question about why did our revenues go up or down, or why did our liabilities go up or down, it's discussed there. There's a look at the budget. There's a look at capital asset activity, long-term debt activity, so forth and so on. So again, if I had to suggest you read one part, these 10 pages out of the 100 plus of the document are very important.
You're talking about the annual comprehensive financial report, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we need to make sure everybody gets that.
Yes, sir.
Copy if they haven't already.
Beyond that, just some financial statement highlights, and I'm going to breeze through these relatively quickly. Total assets, $289 million at the end of 2022. Of that 289, about $65 million is cash. That's restricted and unrestricted. The vast majority of that's unrestricted. There's only a relatively small portion of the 65 that's considered restricted. About $4 million of that is comprised of a variety of receivables. Those are from taxes, from just general accounts receivable from customers and things of that nature. And then the largest portion there, $216 million in capital assets. Those are reported net of accumulated depreciation. Those capital assets are things like infrastructure, vehicles, land, things of that nature. So that's really the composition of the assets of the city. And you can see here, assets are up overall about $9.2 million from 2021. Liabilities, $140 million in liabilities. I kind of break that down in two components. The first is what we call current, or that amount that's due within 1 year from the balance sheet date. That comprises almost $16 million of the 140. And then $116 million is considered long-term, or due in more than 1 year. And I've broken that out a little bit further. $91 million of the long-term portion is considered what I'll call financing. That's bonds, various notes payable, things of that nature, issued to acquire largely capital assets. And then the other portion, $25 million, is the pension liability associated with the state retirement plans. Those do fluctuate from year to year outside of anybody's control. I think it was $23 million in 21 and up to 25 in 2022. And you can see largely the increase in liabilities of almost $4 million from 2021 is primarily pension related in this instance. And then we get equity, or what's called net position, of almost $150 million, $149 million. That's broken up into basically three components. $121 million is the net investment in capital assets, which is what it sounds like. It's capital assets minus any debt that's currently outstanding that was issued to finance those. $28 million in restricted for a variety of purposes, debt service, capital projects, things of that nature. And then a deficit of $32,000 considered unrestricted. I will mention that this is not fund balance. This is net position. There is a difference. I won't get into the weeds of why there's a difference at this moment, but I wouldn't let that deficit cause you any concern. You can see the pension liability there at that large amount has largely caused that deficit. If you were to look in your statistical section in the back of the annual comprehensive financial report, you can look at 10 years of data that show what your net position was at the end of 22 and what it was in 2013. And you'll see about 2015, it went from a big positive number to a big negative number. That was the implementation of the standard that required this pension number to be recorded on your balance sheet. So that really created this deficit. But positive news relative to this number is the deficit decreased, if I'm saying that right. If you think about the negative amount got smaller by almost $3.9 million as a result of 2022 operations. So it is shrinking, which is obviously a very positive thing. And overall, equity or net position for the city as a whole, all funds, increased by about 5% or $7.5 million. That's the big picture. Narrowing down a little bit on the general fund, since that's usually what everybody's the most interested in. General fund reports $8.8 million in assets. The vast majority of that's cash, $7 million in cash, $2 million in liabilities. That gives us fund balance of about $5.7 million. Fund balance is broken up into a variety of classifications. Probably the most important for decision-making purposes is the unassigned portion of that. And that unassigned portion of fund balance is $3.4 million, or about 59% of the total fund balance. And you can also look at general fund's fund balance as a percentage of expenditures, which should give you an idea of about how much of an operating reserve you have on hand at current spending levels. So the general fund's fund balance as a whole is about 27% of all of the 2022 expenditures of the general fund.
Has that been pretty regular to what we've been each year? Ain't that
It's
pretty
about-
common?
It's about 3 months.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, if you look at that, if you think about where you are in your, I have a chart here in a moment that we can look at to talk about it a little bit more, but if you think about the seasonality of your revenue streams, the largest individual revenue item is obviously property taxes. Those are largely paid December, January, February. So to be at December, you should have a pretty flush position in terms of your fund balance in the general fund as you look to finance your operations through the rest of the year. So 3 months is generally a baseline that the Government Finance Officers Association recommends that you have set aside. So a good place to be. Certainly not excessive, I can say that.
So to put it in for citizens, with financial, you talk about you want to have six to 12 months of reserve available in case you were not working. In our regard, for the municipality, a 3 month is that window. That's the idea.
3 months is generally the low end of the recommendation for fund balance to have as a reserve in that event. And that really, that's what that 3 months number tells you, is that basically if you didn't take in another dollar, you could operate on fund balance for about 3 months. So that's sort of how you can think about that.
Thank you.
Just beyond that, some income statement highlights of the general fund. Revenues, $21 million, were up about $2 million from 2021. Expenditures about $21 million, also up right at about $2 million, $2.1 million from 2021. There were some what we call other items, which are net transfers in between funds, proceeds from the issuance of leases, things of that nature. All of this leads us to a decrease in the fund balance of the general fund of about $431,000. The general fund budget comparison I've included as another slide just to look at how the year stacked up relative to the budget. Budgeted revenues of 19.3 versus actual revenues of 21.4, so a positive revenue variance of 2.1 million. Budgeted expenditures of 20.7 versus actual of 21.1. That gives you a negative variance on the expenditure side of 438, and then budgeted other items, budgeted to have other items coming in, and again, that's largely transfers from other funds. 1.4 million actually had these other items netting to a transfer out or an outflow of 671,000, so a negative variance there. But you can see sort of how it stacked up, the actual results relative to the budget. Just after that, I've got some charts. I don't want to chart you to death because I can do that. But just some things to look at here. The first one is revenues of the general fund. The big red slice of the pie is your property taxes. So sort of what we were talking about earlier. The second largest, the orange there, is licenses and permits, largely driven by business licenses there. The next slide is general fund expenditures. And the largest piece of the pie here is the purple slice. That's public safety. That's typical for any municipal government. The second largest is general government. Those are comprised of, general government anyway is comprised of a variety of different departments there. But just to give you an idea of where expenditures are going by what we call functional area. Just beyond that, I'm not going to spend much time here, but just to look at here, general fund revenues are blue, expenditures are red, just so you can see that for the last 5 years, how that has stacked up against each other.
Grant, let me stop you.
Sure.
So go back, so just revenue, if you add up those revenue numbers, are going to be a little higher actually than the expenditures excluding. So talk to me about, just so people understand, the net transfers in and the net proceeds, where that comes. Because people are going to
Sure.
explain that
Sure.
so people understand some perspective of that.
Yeah, so the other items do not technically meet the definition of a revenue or an expenditure in accordance with government accounting. So they're really called other financing sources or other financing uses. Sources are obviously positive, that's money coming in. Uses is negative, maybe not the right word, is the use of funds. The city has a number of individual funds, and those funds transfer money between each other for various purposes every year. So the general fund actually reports a net transfer in of money of $1.4 million. So that's comprised of in and out. So money's coming in and money's going out. And then the debt proceeds is really strange if you're from the private sector. This is where governmental accounting gets really weird. But instead of showing a liability in your general fund for a long-term item, such as a lease or a bond, for example, the general fund reports an inflow of resources, so cash coming in, sort of like a quasi-revenue, to be used. So it's a short-term resources measurement focus. So that's, you're going to have significant divergence if you tried to stack up the general fund's balance sheet to that of some private sector entity or something like that. But the debt proceeds is reflective of debt has been issued, cash has been received to be spent in the general fund. So there's no offsetting liability in the general fund for that. I hope that was as clear as mud. All right, flipping back to our charts. One more on the general fund. You can just see the changes in fund balance of the general fund for the last 5 years, how it has gone up and has gone down here and there. Again, this is just for flavor, just to give you something to look at. The last couple of financial statement highlights I want to mention, the enterprise funds, or what are called the business type funds, the water and sewer, utility, sanitation services, and stormwater primarily make up these totals, so that's what I'm referring to. Those basically as a group, $106 million in assets with those funds. Pretty large portion of that is cash, and another large portion is infrastructure ultimately, but about $22.4 million in cash in those three funds, $28.7 million in liabilities, and about $77.5 million in equity, or what's called net position. The net position did increase by about $3.3 million from 2021 to 2022. Operating revenues, $18.1 million. That's up about $600,000 from 2021. And then operating expenditures, $14.9 million. That's down about $300,000 from 2021. So an increase in the equity position of those three funds together of about $1.2 million, or 57. Did I read that right? 57. Yeah, 57%. The next item here is cash flows. Just like any business, for these funds, it's especially important to monitor the cash that has been generated. What has it been used for? And this statement and these highlights try to demonstrate that. So these funds together generated free operating cash flows of about $5.3 million. And then you can see the red items, how that was used. You had $1.1 million used in what are called non-capital activities. That's largely transfers out to the general fund, which we talked about a moment ago. $2.9 million used in capital activities, and those were used to buy capital assets of about $1.5 million and to make debt service payments of about $1.8 million. And then a little bit of cash, that's basically interest revenue, $297,000 in interest revenue, overall cash increased $1.7 million. Just after that, there's a brief look at same kind of concept. Revenues are blue, expenses are red by fund. So water and wastewater, obviously the largest in terms of their financial operations, followed by sanitation and stormwater, and then you can barely register the Savannah Bluff Locking Dam. It doesn't have a whole lot going on over there. Right after that, last couple things, we've issued 2 compliance reports in the annual comprehensive financial report. The first one is what we call our yellow book report. It's a report on internal controls and compliance with laws, regulations, grant agreements, so forth. It is not designed to offer an opinion, but to provide what we call negative assurance, which is to say we conducted our audit in accordance with government auditing standards and generally accepted auditing standards. If we noted any instances of noncompliance or internal control deficiencies, we would have to communicate that to you all. I'm happy to say we did not note any instances of noncompliance or internal control deficiencies. The second, or well, I should say the third and final report, the second compliance report, is the report on internal controls and compliance with the uniform guidance, which is federal. It's the federal regulations relative to spending of federal money. If you spend over $750,000 in federal money in a year, it triggers a compliance audit that we call a single audit. The city did expend over $750,000. In fact, almost $1.4 million in federal expenditures were noted in calendar year 2022. About $1 million of that, or 74%, was the ARPA Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recovery Funds. We audited that program and issued a clean opinion stating that the city complied in all material respects with the compliance requirements required by the federal government. So another clean report relative to that requirement. Just after that, we've got a few required communications here that I have to make to you all, things like we're independent of the city. We didn't have any disagreements with management in conducting the audit. We didn't have any uncorrected misstatements, things of that nature. So all, again, just a positive report. And this goes on for a couple of slides of all the things that I just said. There's one last slide. New accounting standards are upcoming. I'm not going to take any more of your time to tell you all about them unless you just really want to know. But they are going to have to be implemented in the coming years, and I've tried to include a date as to when those are required to be implemented going forward. So the last thing that I would mention is the audit process was really positive this year. I will say that. We started at about the same time that we have historically, which is late February. I will say, in light of having a new finance director and some new finance staff, to be able to have that done and issued and have a clean report is I think very positive, and just a testament to to Linda and her efforts and the efforts of her staff. So again, just wanted to mention that before I get out of here.
Can you very simply give an example of just number 94, public-private and public partnerships? What does that look like?
That's the hardest one to talk about. I think, largely that I would be shocked ultimately if that one is going to be applicable to many municipalities. I think the examples that I have heard to this point are, say, South Carolina Department of Transportation enters into an agreement with a private party to operate a toll road. Then you have a situation where you've got, we call them a P3, to not have to say all that at one time. So you've got the public-private or public-public partnerships. I'm not sure where we got P3 from, but that's what the GASB's calling them. Those types of examples where you have a governmental unit who has entered into an agreement, it's almost like a lease agreement for another government or even a private party to operate a facility or a piece of infrastructure or something like that that is owned by the government for a pretty long period of time, lands you into the GASB 94, the P3 environment. You could see it in a smaller, at a smaller scale. I mean, maybe if you had like a coliseum or a meeting venue or something like that you had leased out to another entity, whether it's another government or a private party, to operate, basically take on all the burdens and responsibilities of operation. You could have a similar situation with that.
Nothing to do with just normal private partnerships that we do with groups, like we think, okay.
I can see that would be a little bit misleading. It is technically, I would think of it in 3 words, well, I don't know if I can say 3 words. In few words, it's a lease between governments, kind of.
Any other questions for Grant? Grant, thank you, sir. Thank you, Linda, and your staff. All you do.
Thank y'all.
The second item for focus items tonight will be recycling changes for residents, and I'll turn that over to Rachel.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to invite Mr. Jason Sykes up to deliver the presentation for you.
Boys dressed up sharp tonight.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. So as we kind of wrap up with the MRF, we're concluding the construction and the opening on this Friday. So with that being said, we're excited about a new change in our recycling program. As you know, in the prior, we've kind of used blue bags and things of that nature. So we are moving into utilizing totes. So the residents would receive an 18-gallon blue tote to place out, store all their recyclables. They can put out curbside. So kind of how this would kind of roll out is we will take and deliver each resident. If the citizen owns a roll cart, they will be issued one of these 18-gallon blue containers. They will be able to put that out with their roll cart that they take and pick up their trash. The first tote that they'll get will be one free tote. If they need an additional tote, there would be a charge for that. Because I know that there's some other, customers will actually produce more recyclables than most. So next slide. So the way that's going to work is the recycling will be every other week. So you would have basically a green week and a blue week. We will post something on the website to let them know what day or what week their collection would be. So they could log on to the website, then they can go in there and actually put their address in, and it will show them if they're going to be blue or green. There are no changes to the trash pickup day. So if they're picked up on Mondays, they'll continually be picked up on Mondays. They will place their tote right next to the roll cart. It will be picked up by a separate truck, so we'll get calls. They pick up my roll cart, but they didn't pick up my cardboard. That would be a separate vehicle. So, but it will be picked up that same day. Next slide. Just kind of a. So this is the recycling process. So basically, what it would do, if you see the map, we have basically the green and the blue, and we would split that up. So Wednesday, you would have basically we divided it half on one side and half on the other. Again, there's no change to the trash pickup day. And if they do have excess, so for instance, a lot of customers have a lot of cardboard, they can put that, if it will not fit in the tote, they can put that off to the side of it. So we'll still pick that up. So if it doesn't fit in there, they can still put that out. So next slide. So on important days, so as of tomorrow, they will be able to log on and they can actually view what pickup day they will be. So they'll be able to figure out if they're green or blue. Of course, on Friday, this Friday, there's a grand opening at the MRF. So you get to come and see kind of how that all looks. So we're really excited. I believe the project turned out very well. On July 31st, the new totes will begin delivering. Approximately, it will take us about 2 weeks to deliver them. So we'll hopefully have all that summed up. And the first collection week will be August 14th for the residents.
This is fantastic. Y'all have worked hard on it. My question for you is, how are they going to know to find this information?
Okay, so what we'll do is we'll post it on the Facebook and also our website. We'll actually send that out into email notifications. And also, when we deliver these, we'll have flyers that will be attached to them. So when they are delivered to the residents, they'll actually have a flyer in there, and it will tell them, give them all that information on that flyer.
I don't normally do this, I try not to do this, so I'm thinking out loud before Rachel throws a shoe at me. But I'm just very, because I know who's going to get hit with this. So I guess I'm wondering, is it possible to, it can't be that expensive to have some type of sticky or something that you put on it just to let people, I just think there's going to be a lot of people going to have a hard not knowing this. And what's going to happen is they're going to get these totes, they're going to go get what I do with it. And so I'm just trying to figure out what can we do to drive it. If you go get your trash can, you see a sticker on there that says, hey, they see that. That's my concern. Am I the only one?
Well, yes, that's a big concern. But what about sending a message out with the water bills? I mean, we've done that over the years, that just put a little message on the water bill.
You did mention the flyer will be with the bin.
Yeah, so when we deliver the tote, it would actually be taped to the actual bin. And when we did
There'll
the
be
route
a flyer
change-
on the tote.
Correct.
Oh,
so
okay.
so what
Thank
will
you.
happen?
Okay, I
is-
didn't hear. I missed that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
like when we did the route change a couple of years past,
Thank you.
we sent out stickers.
Sorry.
Basically,
Right
put stickers on top of the lids. It's going to be the same thing. We're just going to have a flyer made up, and it'll have all the information on what they would need to know.
And just remember, if they don't pick it up, it's the next week. Jason, real quick.
Yeah, see, that's going to be,
You get used to
Yeah.
it. Right.
Yeah, so basically the tote, we'll stick it right here, and it'll have the flyer inside of it.
all right, when I explain to somebody really ignorant, my trash day is Tuesday. All right, so if you pick up tomorrow, so then the recyclables won't be picked up till next week?
That's right. So if you were basically picked up today and it's blue week and your green week, you'll be picked up the next week.
Wait a minute now.
Every other week.
Just every other week then?
Correct. Yeah.
But then, but your trash is gonna be every week, but
Every
just
week.
recycles every other week, okay? I think that's a little, I mean, not confusing, but when you think about it. Now, what about holidays? And this is something I would love to have, and I don't think we've got this year. You know, we used to, James, and I don't know who sent that out, where you had every month that had a holiday, you know, July 4th, if your pickup's Tuesday, it will be Wednesday. We don't have that. We do? Well, I hadn't got one for this year. Well, please, who has that? Jamie? Can you send old Pat one, please? Okay. All right.
Jason.
Yeah.
Now, I know like every Monday when the guys come by our house, big cardboard, can we still set that out like we have been doing? Or is this the same truck that's coming to, I mean, I don't understand how that works, but I know, do you have just a separate cardboard truck? Is that how it works?
Yeah. So basically, the blue totes are what we're referring to will be picked up. If you still have cardboard, we kind of consider that bulk pickup, so that will not be affected. You can still put out your large cardboard. It's going to be the blue totes is what we'll be picking up.
The cardboard would go along with your
Every-
trash.
No, it's still a separate truck. See, because the totes.
Yeah, I know, but if you put your trash out, and I had to put cardboard out that same day, they'd pick my trash can, then another truck come get the cardboard.
Correct.
Okay.
And if your wife shops at Amazon like mine, we have,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, 'cause-
lots of cardboard.
Because you could not pick up the cardboard every week. So
Quick question. So is it based on how many roll carts that you have, or is it just one per household regardless? So if I have, like me, I have 2 roll carts, I'm still only getting 1, right?
correct. You'll just be given one free
That's what I thought.
tote. If you wish to have an additional, that you can buy one. So
And I think to piggyback what Pat said, is something going to go out like on a water bill or something like that to kind of give citizens a heads up?
we'll get plenty of education.
Yeah, we've done that over the years, that something that needs to go out to every citizen. Thank God for the water bill.
Well, I think what I was, like trying to say is, I didn't know that this was coming until just now. And probably a lot of our citizens don't know, at least kind of give them some heads up. Why is this blue thing sitting in my driveway? It's the only reason why I kind of brought that up.
So if I may interject, tonight is the first night that any of this is being discussed publicly in terms of our process. For the past, 6 6 months, we've been talking about the blue totes are coming. I think I've brought them to a couple meetings. As council members, we wanted to provide you all the heads up on what's to come, which is why we've not posted anything online yet. That was strategic to not update our website at this point because, as we know, the first thing you're going to do, and the first time I showed the mayor, he went to the site and was like, oh, I can't figure out where to put my address. That's right. It's not up. That was strategic. We wanted to come here and provide the info for you all. We want to work through any kinks. We've got a number of ways to get the info out, but this is where we need to know of other ways that we can do that. So hopefully folks that are watching, our media friends who are in person and watching as well, are picking up on all of these as well. Tomorrow, we will have on the recycling website the new, I call it a widget, whatever it is that Kevin Whaley builds, will be available for you to punch in your web address to figure out whether you're blue or green. And that's all you need to know. Am I a blue week? Am I a green week? For me, I know I get picked up on Wednesdays for sanitation. And so every other Wednesday, no matter what my color is, I'll put my tote out. So folks will be able to do that to begin planning. This presentation will be posted on the website as well as posted on our social media. We'll post it in our city facilities that we have. We'll have flyers available at various locations. So any other things that you can think of, we're happy to hear it. But yes, this is the first time that we're talking about it, and we're really excited.
Well, I think anything we can share, because I know when I shared the Murph event this Friday, there was immediately there were 6 shares. So this is something people care about. So if you got social media, Facebook, you need to start forwarding this stuff out, sharing it, and we'll get out.
And just because we'll begin collecting the week of August 14th, which is about 30 days from now, doesn't mean you have to set out. You may receive your tote, and it may take you a couple weeks to fill it up, and that's okay too. You don't have to participate every time. One of the things that we'll do is monitor the, the set out rate? Is that the way? The way that we used to do with blue bags, and we knew approximately how many folks participated. Our recycling folks will pay attention to that too. So we'll be able to tell you, hey, 40% of residents are setting out on a regular basis or anything else like that. And then hopefully, moving into the future, we'll be able to do a weekly recycling pickup. We tried really hard to make that work this year. It's very difficult now with just the employment situation of the world where everything is busy and expensive, but we tried really hard. But we thought we'll start this way. It's a really common way to handle it. City of Aiken does our red and blue week every other. And the more I researched, lots of cities across the country do this.
Why don't we do a black and gold week?
We considered that. I appreciate you saying that. When I met with James and Jason earlier, I said someone's going to recommend that. Blue and green are our city colors. It represents the earth and the river.
Is that tote picked up by a device, or is the individual going to get out of the truck and actually pick it up with their hand and dump it?
So it'd be an individual. He'll pick it up. Yep.
But everything can go in it, glass, plastic, paper. Only thing it can't is cardboard.
Yes, we want the cardboard kind of outside.
Do what now?
Cardboard, because usually cardboard won't fit in. Now, if it's a small cardboard box or something, you
that
put
can
in there.
do.
Or
Like cereal box.
cereal
or something.
boxes,
Yeah.
paperboard, and stuff like
Okay.
that. Yes, ma'am.
That's awesome. We're excited.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for all your efforts. Great.
All right, last but not least, under focus items, we have the Calhoun Park Educational Panels. This will be listed as a resolution on the agenda for next week, but I'm going to just put this up here really for the citizens to kind of see what we're talking about here, and also for council. So next slide, please. So if you go back to 2019, the city council then passed resolution 2019-10, which is before you there, and it nominated or assigned a number of committee members that are listed on the screen to include several members of this council to come up with recommendations for Calhoun Park. And then on the 10th of August in 2020, the Calhoun Park Committee presented recommendations to the City Council that included educational panels for Calhoun Park. In 2021, the then mayor set aside $20,000 in the budget for Calhoun Park improvements, notably for the historical panels. And then we've gone kind of round and round about what the verbiage is going to be based on kind of the committee feedback and also from others. And so now what you have before you will be the proposed resolution of 2023-24, which will allow basically me to be able to pull $20,000 that was set aside in the 21 budget that rolled into the capital projects fund to be able to obligate those funds primarily for the use of the educational panels, but for other improvements at Calhoun Park as is left over. Next slide. So this is an overhead of the Calhoun Park and also what one of the panels would look like as far as the setup. It shows you the location of the panel that would be in front of the Meriwether Monument, so basically the farthest side away from Lookaway Hall, or Lookaway Inn. Next slide. And there'll be 3 panels. And so what you'll see here is the verbiage that would be associated with each of those panels. I have those on the screen. I won't read those to you, but I've sent this to you separately in an email. But this is really for the citizens at home to see, and we'll put this in the minutes so there's a record of this going forward. Next slide.
Can I just interrupt real quick?
Absolutely.
Just to let folks know that the panels, this is from the recommendation of the proposal that the committee gave.
Yes, sir.
This isn't us coming up with some ideas to write it
No.
up or whatever. This is us accepting what I know Trina's here, accepting what the committee is recommended back 3 years ago.
Correct, Mr. Mayor. And then this will be the final panel. I'll add some spaces around the $400, so I'm not going to have a big run-on sentence there on your panel. Next slide. So ultimately what we'd be asking for is for the approval of this resolution. Again, what this simply does is takes money that had rolled out of the 21 budget into the capital projects fund, because that's where all the leftover money goes at the end of the year. And that is set aside for that specific purpose. So that would allow your request that the council would allow the administration to go ahead and pull the $20,000 out of the capital projects fund to be able to move forward on the educational panels. And I'll pause for any questions.
Now, of course, Dave and I were on that committee, and I do like the panels, Trina. That's sort of what we talked about. The only thing I don't like, I think the writing on the monument should go. I know we went through all this with the state. Who does the monument belong to? It was never made clear, right, Kelly, who the monument belonged to.
That's correct.
Right.
With that, but based upon the status of the law right now, we cannot change what's on that monument.
So the writing, I mean, I think that is just what offended so many people. It's horrible. And, I mean, like I said, I know we may be, but the writing, there's no way that can come
I don't
off.
think that's not the argument. The situation is, the legislature, the law that was passed does not allow us to remove that
monument
or make any changes to it. We can do this.
Okay, but
And I agree with Pat. I mean, my preference would be that we sandblast the words off of the monument and get rid of that. If I could make that happen, that would be my preference. I think the panels, I think the panels are great. I think, I'm in favor of the panels. I'm going to vote for the panels, but I do at least want to publicly state that I would like this to be a step towards somehow, without getting overly political on it, with the ultimate intent. And I know this probably never happens if we go ahead and approve the panels, we just move on. But it's hard for me to drive past that monument every day knowing those words are on it and feel good about it.
I agree about the word thing, but the one thing I thought about is if those words were never there, I mean, I knew nothing about the Hamburg massacre until that was brought up. Unfortunately, I mean, I agree. I wish the words were never stated that way, and I would be if we could ever make the step in that direction. But it is something I did think about, and I'm like, had that not been there, been controversial, how many people would have or would not have known about the Hamburg Massacre? I believe they teach it in high school now, because I know Katie came home and she knew all about it, and I'm going, do what? I'd never heard of it, lived here my whole life. So, in a way, yeah, it's not what we believe today. But unfortunately, had that never come to light, and honestly, I never knew anything about it till, what was it, Kevin, our second, third meeting, we were elected, and, it was brought to us. I 40-something years rode by it, and now every time I'm like you, I rode by there for many, many, many years, never knew anything about it. So, it's definitely not good what it says, but at least the history, and at least, in this part, everybody that, lost their lives that day will be recognized.
And Kelly, and maybe you need to send me something, but I just thought the states always sort of said, we really don't know who it belongs to.
Well, and
that's
that's really not the issue with this right now. That was the way they escaped in the Greenwood case, where they were able to do something, but actually they still weren't supposed to do that. But the legislature passed the law that says we cannot.
And has that been since all this started?
No, this was done, it goes all the way back with when they took the flag down off of the Capitol roof. And that was basically the compromise that was done at that time. And it was kind of like, okay, we're going to do this, but nothing else is going. And that's the status of the law right now.
But I mean, then I want to question myself. If we knew that was the law when this all started, why did we even question the state? I mean, if we already knew that was the law, you couldn't move it.
It gets a little more involved. That the Greenwood case, the way the judge was finally able to, maybe shouldn't use it, get rid of that case. He made a determination that the statute that was in Greenwood belonged to the well, I'm trying to think who it was, whether it was the VFW or whoever, it was some organization, and it did not belong to the city, and that they could do whatever they wanted to with it. Well, that decision was passed down. It was ultimately appealed, but before it was appealed, Greenwood did what they had wanted to, and all that was adding names to the monument up there. And those names were added. Then the appeal basically, I think, set aside the decision of they were going to set aside the decision of lower court, but then they decided that it was moot because what they were requesting to do had already been done. It's a legal tangle, but that's why we decided to try to find out who owned the monument, to see but what happened in that case, it was not a governmental agency that owned the monument. And if this either belongs to the city of North Augusta or belongs to the South Carolina legislature, and the act that was passed applies to both.
But I thought it was a gift to this when it was put up. First of all, I'm like Kevin, I want this to go on record too. Why in the world did we put that up? Because Meriwether wasn't even from North Augusta. I mean, that's what I still wrap my brain around. How did this monument get put up to begin with? And then, like I said, I always thought they said it was a gift. What kind of gift's that? But gift to North Augusta.
The legislature appropriated money for it, and there was a big ceremony apparently with members of the legislature here when the city, and it's my understanding, the city accepted it, and that's the way it is.
I mean, it looks like that's a gift. To me, if I give you something and you accept it, that's a gift. I mean, I don't, and I want you to know, there's not much in this city I do not like. I love everything in this city, but that is one thing I absolutely hate in this city, because it does not reflect, I know my feeling and everybody on this council's feeling, and even Trina and everybody else in town. That does not reflect what North Augusta's about. And
that's what one of the panels says.
yeah.
One of the panels you're putting up says
But
that exact thing.
like I said, I'm for the panels, because I saw those young men's names, and I just can't imagine that ever happening. But I still think one day them words need to come off.
Well, Pat, you can, you ought to talk to Mayor Pettit, and I know that he did a lot of work on this, and he wrote a very in-depth report that talked about the history of all of that, who was there. So it's out there to be read. So you just, okay?
Well, I'm sorry.
But what I'm going to spin this a little different, okay? I think we're all on the same page, but the bottom line is, this council's got to decide, what do we have control of? What can we do? And I don't think we're going to put the city in a suit because of that. So what this is about is education. And what the panels are going to do, education. And what I would tell you is, I was going to say this a minute ago, is this Saturday, July the 15th at 10 o'clock at the old sanctuary of First Providence Church, which is right there in North Augusta, the second annual Hamburg Carswell Commemorative Program. They're going to have panel discussion on understanding the Hamburg story, why it's important. They're going to have the Rangers from the Reconstruction Era National Park. They're going to present a certificate to include that area into the Reconstruction Era National Network. So education is how we make a change in this country and in this community. So what's our job is, when we have the wreath laying that was done last week, we don't need 25 people there. We need 2,000 people there. And when we have this event here, they need to have that place packed. Our responsibilities, what can we control? The education panels we can control, and we can control getting the word out to educate ignorant people who don't understand it. That's what our responsibility, that's what we can do. So my charge for this council is, what can we control? And right now, the one thing we can control next week is those education panels. That's the first step.
Well,
And show up next Saturday.
Well, I'm really
It's
glad
coming Saturday.
that we're able to actually take some action now.
Thank you.
I'm really
3
excited
years,
that we
way too
actually
long.
we're at the point we can take action.
I agree too.
I'm really proud of all the work that we did, and the mayor and all the committee to put these panels together, and all the time that was spent, all the people that came and spoke during those meetings. There were some very contentious ones a couple times, but we got through it, and I'm very proud that we are able to make some action at this.
And we're going to invite all of the committee that was on there next week. So just let you know, give them opportunity to.
It's a step in the right direction.
Yes, it is.
Mr. Mayor, that's all I have from the staff for the study
Come on.
session for this evening.
Okay. Well, that was my one little caveat. I did that there. Okay, anything else for the good order, anybody? All right, thank you all for being here. We stand adjourned.